Welcome to episode 51 of Posture Labs and Alignment Fundamentals. My name is Emma. Thank you so much for joining me for this series as we come to a close. We started with really basic poses and we've worked our way up to today. Today is Visvamitrasana. This is an arm balance. It's a challenging pose. I have intentionally sequenced it behind things like 8-angle pose, compass pose, and birds of paradise. So I would recommend doing some sort of warm-up, including some hip openers and maybe some of those tutorials or those poses if you know how to do them as well. I would not recommend just jumping on your mat and doing this pose right away with no warm-up. At minimum, spine, wrists, shoulders, hips all need to be warmed up. You can also see this pose in a lot of my vinyasa classes, so I would check those out as well. Now, there is a few ways to do this pose. I have a block here to help me as well, so I'll give you that option. Now, I'm going to go over the quote-unquote easier way or the more common way that we see this pose, or at least that I practice this pose, and then the quote-unquote harder or correct way to do this pose, which is not very accessible, so take it or leave it. This pose, I like to get in from fallen triangle. So think about when you're in downward facing dog. Say, let's lift the right leg up, crunch right knee towards left elbow, and then you kick your right leg out for fallen triangle. The toes kind of line up with the fingertips, and you spin your left foot flat. Now from here, I'm in fallen triangle pose. The only thing that's really different in this quote-unquote easier version is now my top hand, my left hand, is going to reach for the outer edge of my right foot. I might start by pulling that foot towards me, bending the knee if I need to, grabbing the outer edge of the right foot. I can always start with grabbing the knee instead and holding here. Once I'm able for my left hand to grab the outside of my right foot, I'm going to kick my right leg towards the front of the mat with the foot flexed. Keep pushing right hand through the mat. I'm trying to push my hips over to the left. So I'm trying to push my hips towards the camera. My left leg is still strong, outer edge pushed down like warrior two. Now, if you just randomly found this video, you're like, what the heck is going on? I can't even get into fallen triangle. Here is where I have some options. So you can always do fallen triangle, or you can always do this pose with your back knee down. So if you're gonna go fallen triangle, right leg out, you could put your back knee down. It's not really the pose, but spinning your left shin behind you might help you feel the pose more. Now, same idea here. This is where a block might come in handy. So I'm going to put the block short height underneath my right hand. I still have my right leg kicked out. So if I was in fallen triangle, I just have a block underneath my right hand. Then I drop my left knee to the mat, spin my shin behind me. My left hand, once again, is going to grab my right foot, and I'll extend my leg. Now this is easier for two reasons. One is the block. The block is bringing the mat up towards me. And two is my back knee is down, so I don't have to worry about my left leg or what my left knee feels like or opening that, controlling that hip as much. I can focus more on getting stable in the pose. So having a block and putting the back knee down is a great way to modify this pose. Let's do that on the other side. So if I have a block underneath my left hand, right hand on the mat, and I'm in down dog, wouldn't usually recommend doing down dog with just one block, but for the purpose of this video, our left knee is going to crunch towards our right elbow, kick left leg out to the right, roll right foot flat, or when you're still on your toes, drop your right knee, spin your right shin behind you. Right hand grabbing the outside edge of the left foot. Now I'm pushing my hips towards this black wall. I'm trying to pull my left leg towards the camera. So I have external rotation in this left hip. The foot is flexed. What that would look like with the back foot down, right foot flat, grab the outside edge of the foot. You have to make sure your back foot's really stable, so you don't want it to feel like it's slipping away from you. You have to really push down through that back foot. Now, all of those are the quote-unquote easier version because my leg is in front of my arm. I'm grabbing my leg and pulling it. Now, to do the pose, ideally you are actually going to have that leg behind your arm. You might be like, how can I even get there? It's a different entrance, that's why. So I would recommend actually starting this in a modified Warrior 2. So on your mat, if you do Warrior 2 with your right leg forward, the right toes point towards the front of the mat, the left leg would be extended, but we're just going to start modified. Our left knee is going to be on the mat. I'm going to place a block inside my right foot here. Then I want to think modified side angle. Right hand down inside the foot. My left knee is going to remain on the mat for this variation. The challenging part here is I really want to get my left hand to grab my right foot. So what I have to do is kind of inch my right foot forward and try to take my right arm underneath my right leg. So a prep pose you could do would be like this modified down dog lunge that I often put into my class. Then you kind of take your right arm underneath your right leg. Now my right hand's on the block. I'm kind of wearing my right leg like a backpack. My heel's floating off the mat and my toes are light. I use my left hand for support until my left hand can grab my outer right ankle. If you've never seen this pose, you're probably like, what the heck, this lady is getting into a pretzel shape. It kind of does look like a pretzel. So my right leg's on like a backpack. Then I'm gonna work to straighten my right leg, push my hips towards the camera. So same idea as what we just did, but now I can actually use my right arm to push my right leg back. I just have to focus on this right hip pushing towards the camera. That's gonna give me that external rotation. So I'm pushing right knee out and right hip in. Looked very similar. You cannot, if you've never practiced yoga, you might not see the difference between these two poses. The only thing is my arms in front or in back of my leg. Now, what's really hard is doing this with the back foot flat. So I would recommend the same thing, kind of starting in a Warrior 2 with the right hand, or a side angle with the right hand on a block. Now to get the right arm under the right leg, again, I like to kind of dip down like you would do for Humble Warrior. Tuck right arm underneath right leg and use that block. Put that block kind of outside the right heel. If you're not using the block, you can take your right thumb and right pointer finger and kind of cup your right heel. That's where your hand should be. But we're going to start with the block. Right hand on the block. I'm going to use my left hand for support. I want to get my my right arm up and over as high as I can onto my shoulder, like I mentioned for compass pose. That just helps so it won't fall off as I try to shift my weight. I'm going to bend my right knee so that I can kind of balance here for a moment as my left hand grabs my outer right foot. Push right hand down, extend right leg, push right hip towards camera, flex toes. Same thing, bend knee, release foot, hands down, and release. So you don't just want to fling, release the foot. It's a great way to get injured. You want to come out intentionally, the same way you got in, nice and slow. Now, I honestly don't know if I can do this pose without a block, but we shall see. And maybe we'll even it out and do this on the other side. So if you're in a side angle, that's how I'd recommend starting. You need to do at least some external hip rotation before trying this pose. I'm going to take my left arm underneath my left leg. So I want to get my shoulder behind my leg so that my left calf is on my shoulder like a backpack strap. My left thumb and pointer finger are kind of cupping my heel, but they're pushing down. So I'm not holding my heel, that's just where they're set up. Now, I'm going to use my right hand. I'm bending my left elbow to start to make a little shelf so that I can float my left foot off the mat. My right hand grabs the outside edge of my left foot. My right foot has to stay really firm, planted where it is, as I extend my left leg, push my hips towards the camera, and release. This pose is very, very challenging, whether you do your arm in front or behind, whether you use a block or not. This is a really, really hard pose. It took me a long time to learn even just the leg in front version from Fallen Triangle. So please don't, see this video and just assume you'll be able to do the pose or that most people can do the pose like this. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, and a lot of trial and error to learn all of the different ways in which your unique body works. For me, I have really short legs, which helps me in this pose. In other areas of my life, I would love to have longer legs, but it does help me when doing poses like this. So that's the silver lining. If you have longer legs, you have a lot more space to reach and extend, so it will be a little bit harder for you. Make sure you warm up before this. I can't stress that enough. I would not want anyone to get injured from this video. If you don't warm up, there is a high injury risk, so I'm just trying to warn you as much as possible. If you have any other tips or tricks for this really challenging pose called Visvamitrasana, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with your family and friends who would like it. And final thing, if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel. That is the best way to support me. I will see you back next week for our final episode of this series. I can't wait to share it with you.